I want to learn all about the process and what happens next. But before we do that, we should tell esteemed audience a little bit about Too Bright to See, which they could be purchasing right now as they're listening. So here's the fun thing we'll do. Kyle, I'll have you tell us an overview of the book. You remember my promise, I don't do other people's bios or other people's books. But then, because we have Saba here, I will have her give us some feedback on how you could have better presented the book. I think that seems fair.
So I'm Kyle, pretty sure he has it nailed now. We've been talking about the book a lot, but yeah, sure, we'll see. I'm pretty sure he'll do a great job, but you know, that's just me encouraging. That's what I do.
See, Kyle, if you had gone with the agent that wanted to tell you sucked all the time, you wouldn't have that nice encouragement now. So anyway, tell us about Too Bright to See.
Yeah, so it is a ghost. So it's a ghost story, and it's about a kid being haunted by the ghost of their dead gay uncle into figuring out something extremely important. Which, like, I'm sure we'll get into spoilers later, but that's the elevator pitch for it. And the idea for it came, I was hanging out in the library that I used to work in, talking to a parent at my school. And I was like, you know, I want to write, part of me wants to write a middle grade novel about a trans boy because I don't know that many yet. And I don't like the ones that I know about. Sorry, I'm whatever. But I also had really wanted to write a ghost story using the first sentence of a short story that my dad had written when he was in college. My dad he's not really a writer, but he did some writing when he was younger. And I remember being in like 4th or 5th grade, and he told me that he once wrote a story where the first sentence was, "It was strange living in the old house now that Uncle Roderick was dead." And he said that he couldn't remember the rest of the story, but he remembered that first sentence, and he still thought it was a good first sentence. And I remember going to like my teacher in elementary school being like, "My dad wrote this sentence, isn't it a good sentence?" And my teacher was like, "Yeah, honey, it's a very nice." I was an extremely cool child. But like that sentence just like stayed with me forever. And once I started to figure out that I wanted to be a writer, I was like, I want to steal that sentence and use it. Like, I don't know the story yet, but I know at least one character's name in it. And I know that there's a house, and I know that it's strange, and I know that someone is dead. And so I was telling this mom at my school, like, I want to write this middle grade trans boy novel, but I also want to write this ghost story. I don't know which one to do first. And then like, I just had that like light bulb where I was like, it's going to be the same book. It's going to be the ghost story about a trans boy where Uncle Roderick is dead. And like that morning, it's like the entire book just like unfurled in front of me like a red carpet. Like I knew every single one of the major beats. And I didn't know how it got from here to there, but I had like the major tent poles just sort of right there. Then I started writing it, and then I gave up, and then I tried again, and then I gave up again for like 2 years, I think. And then I went back to it, and I was like, no, this isn't as bad as I thought it was. I'm gonna finish this and see what happens.
What do you think, Saba? How do you do?
I thought it was, I thought the beginning was very pithy. He summed it up in a few sentences, which is what he should have done. And then he went into a personal anecdote, which made it even more memorable. So I would say 10 out of 10. I loved it. I'm going to buy that book right now. Oh, wait, I already have an art. It's fine. Okay.
That's it. I'm making you co-host of the show from here on out. Every time an author summarizes their book, we need to get your feedback. We'll be like American Idol for book pitches. It'll be fantastic.
Oh, perfect.
So, okay. And Kyle, you said something I wanted to follow up on, and then I want to trace the story of how this brings you two together, and then how the two of you battle to make this an actual book that is available Tuesday, April 20th. Or if you found this later, esteemed audience, good news, you can get it right now. But you have said elsewhere that you wanted to make being trans a starting point for a story, but not the whole story. Am I butchering that quote, or am I pretty close?
Kind of. I definitely see it as a starting point, not an end point. And I see it as something that can set up a story, but that is not the ending of a story.
So I'm curious, because you were talking about you wanted to write either the trans story or the ghost story. So was there a point where you were going to write a story that was solely about being trans, and then this idea came to you that no, we can go beyond that? Or when did you say why not both, and why ghost as opposed to something else?
Well, I mean, again, I cannot underestimate how important spite is in my journey.
If there's one takeaway from this interview, everyone.
No, like I think that that's the case for a lot of my books. Like I think that might be part of my like hesitation to identify as a writer, although I do now because I have to for marketing copy. But I tend to not approach writing from a like, I have stories inside me that I need to share, or like I have this innate drive to put words on paper. For me, it is often like, here is an object that I want to exist in the world. Here's an idea that I want to exist in the world. Here is a conversation that I want to be part of. How can I be part of this conversation? I came out as trans in like 2004-ish, which is like a lot of years ago, over 15 years ago at this point. And like I came out as queer in high school, which was 20 years ago. So like I've been, part of these communities and these subcultures for most of my, if not my entire adult life. And I've been part of these like communities and conversations, but mostly in just like a social life kind of way, just like hanging out with my friends and like going on dates with people and like complaining about the same TV shows or whatever. And I knew that I always wanted to be like more of a part of these conversations, but not knowing my entrance point. Like I thought it was going to be law school. I thought I was going to be like Chase Strangio, who in fact we were in law school together. We were in the same class. That's how we met. So I see in Chase Strangio, the ACLU lawyer, sort of like a divergent path that I could have taken. And yeah, I approached it as like, these are the kind of books that I think should exist in the world. And I don't know if I'm a good enough writer to do it, but I'm going to try. So I want to try to middle grade trans boy book because I wanted there to be one that matched my sort of like both creative and political ethoses. That's not the plural, but I don't care.
Ethosi, sure.
Ethosi, sure, why not? Ethosities. So I wanted one, like I wanted this object, this like cultural object to exist. And I didn't really have a story in mind first, because like I knew the sort of book that I didn't want to write, but I didn't know the story that I wanted to write. And then just like the ghost story, I was like, oh duh, like that's so obvious. Like and so you asked why ghosts, and it's because, I mean, Uncle Roderick is dead. Like, I guess he could have been a vampire because they're undead. And he could have been a zombie because they come back from the dead. But that wouldn't make a house strange. Like a vampire book is very different from a haunted house book, and a zombie book is very different from a haunted house book. And in that first sense, we know that it is strange living in the old house, which tells you a lot about the world that we have already entered into. There's a house and it's strange and someone is dead. And that, to me, like, I don't know what else it would be but a ghost. And there's like more that one could read into about the idea of like loss and like being haunted by the memories of our beloved dead, and how like what we don't know about those that we've lost will haunt us now. But I wasn't really thinking about that. I literally was like, I get to write a book about a trans boy using my dad's sentence. And I didn't really think too deeply about the themes involved. Other people have since said very nice things about the deeper themes, but none of those were really on purpose.
You snuck in some metaphorical truth. Oh, you sly devil.
I didn't mean to, I promise.